As you've made your way around many times with a small flat tool, you may begin to see that the glass is separating. You'll notice that the glass separates very easily on the sides, however the top and bottom may require some prying. When prying at the top of the iPod behind the glass, be careful because there are some cables that are located very close to the camera. If you're not careful, this digitizer cable can be torn very easily. When taking off the glass, remove from the bottom first and leave the top like a hinge. Next, carefully use your flat tool to unplug the LCD cable from the logic board. Once that is unplugged, lay the LCD and the digitizer down like this. Next, there are 8 small Phillips screws that have to be removed. Next, look at the top left-hand side of the metal bracket where there's an indentation. Carefully insert the small flat tool to begin prying here. Be very careful to not damage the copper ribbon cable beneath it. Once it is loosened on the left side, you can then pry on the right side to take the bracket out. It may be somewhat difficult to remove from the lower left-hand side, because it is adhered to the speaker assembly. When lifting the metal bracket out, make sure that the speaker assembly is staying in place because it can damage the cables. Next, remove the small Phillips screw that is located to the right of the camera. And then remove both screws located on each side of the dock connector. Now gently lift up on the logic board on the right hand side and lift up just enough to see the cables located beneath. This is the rear facing camera cable. Use a small flat tool to unplug it from the logic board. Now lift up on the top side of the logic board. There are 2 more cables that have to be unplugged. Next is the front-facing camera cable. Use a small flat tool to unplug this as well. Next is the digitizer cable. There may be some copper tape that wraps around it that has to be taken off first before you can unplug it. Now take out the small Phillips screw at the top left-hand side which holds down the antenna cable. Now at the bottom, towards the right side of the dock connector, there is the headphone module. Use a flat tool to gently pry up and unplug the cable. You can then use your flat tool to pry up on the headphone module to take it out. Now lift up on the right side of the logic board, leaving the left side lower because there is still a cable attached. Gently slide your flat tool underneath the copper tape that goes below the battery and pry this up. You will then begin to feel that the logic board and the battery are becoming loose and can be removed. The battery and logic board must remain together because they are soldered together. When lifting out the logic board, leave the left-hand side of the logic board in place because there is still a flex cable attached. Now remove the 2 small Phillips screws that holds down the volume button cable. Once the 2 screws have been removed, gently lift up on the metal bracket to remove it. Now that the logic board is flipped over, you can also lift up on the antenna cable and unplug it. Next, remove the small Phillips screw above the camera. And then gently use your small flat tool to lift the camera out of place. Then gently use your small flat tool to lift the rear-facing camera out of place. Now to remove the on-off and volume cable. To start, you can remove the small Phillips screw from the right side of the on-off assembly. Next, you will have to peel back the flex cable from the left side of the on-off assembly to get to the small Phillips screw there. Once the cable is bent back enough, you can then remove the small Phillips screw. After that's removed, then this portion of the cable is free. Next, gently begin to remove the rest of the cable from the back case. Take your time and be extremely careful because this cable can tear very easily.